Welcome to the West Wing Week, your guide to everything that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This week, the President signed the America Invents Act, spoke about his common sense deficit reduction proposal, traveled to New York City to meet with world leaders and address the United Nations General Assembly, before visiting Cincinnati to urge Congress to pass the American Jobs Act. That's September 16th to September 22nd, or it's math.
This is not class warfare. It's math. If we're not willing to ask those who've done extraordinarily well to help America close the deficit, and we are trying to reach that same target of $4 trillion, then the logic, the math says everybody else has to do a whole lot more.
On Friday, September 16th, President Obama signed historic patent reform legislation, the America Invents Act, at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria, Virginia. The bill invests in America's future by streamlining the patent process, allowing startups and small business owners to turn their innovative ideas into products more quickly. Before signing, the president toured a classroom and met with student inventors, including Rebecca Heinemann.
Over the last decade, patent applications have nearly tripled. And because the Patent Office doesn't have the resources to deal with all of them, right now there are about 700,000 applications that haven't even been opened yet. Now, these are jobs and businesses of the future just waiting to be created. And today, I'm happy to have the opportunity to finally sign that bill. So this bill answers the urgent need to create jobs right away. But, as I said, we can't stop there. We have to look further down the road and build an economy that lasts into the future. And that's going to depend on the talents of young people like you.
On Monday, the president spoke to reporters in the Rose Garden, where he presented a common-sense, balanced approach to deficit reduction and economic growth.
Now, I'm proposing real serious cuts in spending. When you include the $1 trillion in cuts I've already signed into law, these would be among the biggest cuts in spending in our history. But they've got to be part of a larger plan that's balanced. A plan that asks the most fortunate among us to pay their fair share just like everybody else.
Later, the President and First Lady traveled to New York City to attend the 66th United Nations General Assembly. On Tuesday, September 20th, the President began his two-day trip to New York City by discussing the democratic transition in Libya before heading across town for official meetings with the leaders of Afghanistan, Brazil, and Turkey, and to attend an event on government transparency, where he highlighted recent White House transparency initiatives for other world leaders.
Among our commitments, we're launching a new online tool called We the People to allow Americans to directly petition the White House, and we'll share that technology so that any government in the world can enable its citizens to do the same. We've developed new tools called smart disclosures so that the data we make public can help people make healthcare choices, help small businesses innovate, and help scientists achieve new breakthroughs.
On Wednesday, September 21st, the President addressed the United Nations General Assembly and discussed America's commitment to working with our allies and partners around the world to create and sustain lasting peace.
We come from different cultures and carry with us different histories. But let us never forget that even as we gather here as heads of different governments, we represent citizens who share the same basic aspirations: to live with dignity and freedom, to get an education and pursue opportunity, to love our families and love and worship our God, to live in the kind of peace that makes life worth living.
Later, the President held bilateral meetings with Prime Minister Noda of Japan, Prime Minister Cameron of the United Kingdom, and President Sarkozy of France. The President also addressed a meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative about his administration's efforts to work with Congress to strengthen our economy and create jobs by passing the American Jobs Act.
This bill answers the urgent need to create jobs right away. And I appreciate President Clinton's strong support of this plan over the weekend. And the reason that that's important is because he knows a good jobs plan when he sees it. He created more jobs in his tenure than just about anybody. And I'm fighting hard to make sure that we get this bill passed through Congress.
The President finished his trip to New York at a reception for the United Nations General Assembly at the architectural icon and literary center of the city, the New York Public Library. On Thursday, September 22nd, the President traveled to Cincinnati, Ohio. While in Cincinnati, the President urged Congress to pass the American Jobs Act now. standing before the highly trafficked but functionally obsolete Brent Spence Bridge, which connects the home state of the Republican leader of the House and the home state of the Republican leader of the Senate, the president emphasized the need for prompt bipartisan action to pass the American Jobs Act and create jobs rebuilding America.
I know that when Senator McConnell visited the closed bridge in Kentucky, he said that roads and bridges are not partisan in Washington. That's great. I know that Paul Ryan, the Republican in charge of the budget process, recently said that you can't deny that infrastructure does create jobs. That's what he said. Well, if that's the case, there's no reason for Republicans in Congress to stand in the way of more construction projects. There's no reason to stand in the way of more jobs. Mr. Boehner, Mr. McConnell, help us rebuild this bridge. Help us rebuild America. Help us put construction workers back to work. Pass this bill.
To find out more information on any of these topics or to see complete videos of these events, go to whitehouse.gov. And thanks again for checking out your West Wing Week.
They want you to go to the dance.
They want me to go to the dance. Can I bring Michelle or what's the deal?
That's right.